A Victim Bites Back, episode 20. Having managed to reach 20 episodes, I thought perhaps you'd like to see my home down in Surrey, where I spent most of my life. Indeed, my homes, not just Cobbitts, but Brookhurst and other places as well. So here for you are those sights. Lord David Panic is a very highly respected King's Counsel, KC. In fact, he is representing Boris Johnson in the current Partygate scandal. Anyway, more of him in a moment. But before I set off on my journey down to Surrey to take a look at my original home that I lived in just after being born. I was born in London, but we then moved down to Brookhurst Grange, and we had an uncle who lived next door in a place called Newkins. So I want to take a look at both of those. But then fairly early on, we moved, the family and I, to Cobbitts in Forest Green, just literally around the corner from Brookhurst. Beautiful old house, built in, I think, 1470 or something, before they discovered America, as I pointed out to many of my American relatives. Still looking fantastic, a wonderful old cherished home. And we lived there, and that's where I spent all my time. And even when I went to school, I was at school, although originally at boarding school down in Seaford in Sussex. Then when I went to Charterhouse, that's also in Surrey, in Godalming, and I spent all those years there until I went up to Cambridge. Again, I was based at Cobbitts when I went up to Cambridge, although I also lived in London. So I thought you might like to take a look at that. Anyway, we were talking about Lord Panic. The Delaunay is full of very important lawyers and barristers, solicitors and people. It's right next to the Court of Appeal, and certain people were in the Court of Appeal as I was having lunch. Elton John, my old friend, with his husband David Furnish, Prince Harry. I'm sure you know who Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, is. They were all in the Court of Appeal suing the Daily Mail and the Mail on Sunday, just around the corner. But the Delaunay was very nice, and I was having a meal with a barrister friend, a Casey friend, discussing other matters. And Lord Panic came up to the table and said to me how much he'd loved my record way back in the 70s called Sugar Sugar. You may remember the original bubblegum hit Sugar Sugar was by the Archies, and I wanted to do a version that showed a good song could be anything, and Sugar Sugar was a great song, and it could be interpreted in a totally different way. So I did it as a sort of kind of progressive rock spoof and put it out under the name Saccharine, and it sold very well. I think it made number 12 in the UK, but it was on all those compilation albums. Now that's what I call music, before that was invented, actually, all around the world, and ended up doing, I think, something like 4 million copies in very early 1970s, 1971 or 2, I think, under the name Saccharine. Here's me with Sugar Sugar. Another report comes out this week that says only 1% of rapes result in a conviction. Ridiculous. It's not 1% of rapes, it's 1% of allegations of rape. And the media doesn't cover the fact that most of the people claiming rape then pull out for one reason or another. Well, the media actually assumes the reason they pull out is because of the unpleasantness of having to appear in court, this, that and the other. The reality is probably that an awful lot of people have sex either when they're under the influence of drugs or drink, or when they don't think about it, or they make a mistake. Sometimes they really want to do it and it turns out to be not very satisfactory and they don't enjoy it. That's called regret sex. But afterwards, an awful lot of people decide they've been raped or whatever. Any kind of abuse all goes into the same category, basically, which is ridiculous to start with. And therefore, many of them decide after the fact, actually, after they've made the complaint, no, it wasn't really rape. And that's why they pull out. So the answer is not to increase the amount of convictions for people who make allegations about rape, but to get rid of people who make false allegations and to tell them they must not do so, wasting huge amounts of police time, vast quantities of money, and sometimes ending up with innocent people spending their lives in jail with ruined families, ruined careers. Often they commit suicide. So think twice, think again, think more deeply when you see a headline saying only 1% of sex abuse cases end up in a conviction, and allow your brain cells to function, something that doesn't seem to happen much in humanity these days. The problem is, of course, that human beings have become so superficial they can't think of what the actual real intelligent deep thing is. I mean, it is quite possible, if only 1% of allegations of rape or sexual abuse actually end in a conviction, that 99% of the allegations are untrue. Actually, that's equally wrong. It's probably 94% are actually either exaggerations or inflation or sometimes complete invention. Perhaps the worst thing is that 5% that is true and that doesn't actually end up with a conviction, they're the ones I feel sorry for. They've been destroyed by the media and the public exaggerating the reality, and as a result, it makes them look as though they're liars or exaggerators or confused or whatever. They're the ones that I really feel sorry for, not the 94% or the 1%. Anyway, driving down through Surrey, and I think my camera's getting rather put off by the light flashing through the branches and the leaves of the trees. It doesn't quite seem able to cope with the radical alterations going on. But the roads down to my mum's house in Surrey are fabulous. This is Cold Harbour, where I remember our relation, I think she was almost like a distant aunt, Virginia McKenna, the great actress and the founder of the Born Free Foundation, with her husband Bill Travers, where they lived for many, many years. I think she still does live here. And we go over the hill until we reach the Forest Green Newhurst area, which is essentially where I was brought up from the age of about 2 or 3, all the way through until middle age.
I've seen it on your face, tells me more than any worn out old phrase. So now we'll go separate ways. Never again, we two. Never again, nothing I can do. Like an image passing by, my love, my life, in the mirror of your eyes. My love, my life, I can see it all so clearly, handsomely, sincerely. Was it a dream, a lie, like reflections of your mind? My love, my life, are the words you try to find. My love, my life, but I know I don't possess you, so go go away, God bless you. You are still my love and my life, still my one and only. I watched you look away. Tell me, is it really so hard to say, oh, this has been my longest day? Sitting here close to you, knowing that maybe tonight we're through. Like an image passing by, my love, my life, in the mirror of your eyes. My love, my life, I can see it all so clearly. Answer me sincerely. Was it a dream, a lie, like reflections of your mind? My love, my life, are the words you try to find. My love, my life, but I know I don't possess you. So go away, God bless you. You are still my love and my life. Yes, I know I don't possess you. So go away, God bless you. You are still my love and my life, still my one and only.
Religion is a topic I've talked about in the past. There are many good things about organised religion, especially for people who don't have much of a moral compass themselves and therefore have to go by somebody else's code. And it's quite a good code to say, don't hurt other people, try and behave yourselves in certain ways, be moral, be decent, and so on and so forth. But there are also bad sides of organised religion, and as in many, many things, the longer something goes on, the more lost it gets from its original intentions. And as a result, a great deal of religions, all organised religions, lose their way and become, in many ways, bastions of the bad things that they condemn. They sort of seem to crop up. So that's why basically I'm really against organised religion and very much in favour of individualism, individual religions. Personally, I'm what they call an it doesn't matterist. This is not an atheist, it's not even an agnostic. It's somebody, myself, who basically thinks it doesn't matter. What happens after we die, we have no way of knowing and we have no control over. All we have control over and all we can do is what we know, we see, we hear, we touch, we feel, we taste, and we think about what we have around us. And therefore we should build our lives in that way. A dear friend of mine, Clive Selwood, who ran my label in the 1970s, once said to me I was the most moral person he had ever met, but only to my own morality. And I thanked him profusely for that, because that's exactly what I feel and what should be, I think, everybody's goal. Create your own morality, decide what is right and wrong for you, and behave accordingly. Some cases that may go against society, as indeed in those early days for me, I went against society because I felt it was ridiculous to regard ladies, women, females as capable of making up their own mind of what they wanted to do sexually when they were 16. But for men, boys, teenagers, young men, we were not allowed to do it at all if we decided we wanted to go with another of the same gender. And then in, I think, 1967, it was finally changed, the law on homosexuality, that it was legal as long as both parties were over 21. I thought that was absurd and deliberately, intentionally broke it. Anyway, back to religion, let's take a look at my mother's grave, where we put her after she'd been in the cemetery and burnt to ashes. After her ashes stayed in my little house for about 15 years, I finally decided a few months ago that she really needed to be in a plot in the beautiful little church near us in Forest Green, and that's where she is buried today.
Ow!